Today I'm gonna make my trip report video. Fuck. God damn it. Son of a bitch. Sorry. I'm gonna make my trip report video for the time that I ended up in the hospital on acid. Not a good time. So this video is provided for safety guides, how to safely do acid, where to do it, and who to be around when you're doing it. So, the story all started on the 4th of July, right? So, I was going to my friend's house, Avery and Kale. There's their names, right? I had tripped at their house one time before. And those are just made up names. I'm not going to actually say their real names. But I tripped at their house one time before. And it was fucking incredible. It was beautiful. It was the most magical trip I ever had. It took 4 tabs. Probably close to 1,000 UG, maybe more. It was fucking great. I had the best time I've ever had on LSD. So 4th of July comes around, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. I buy a couple more tabs, right? I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be great. I can't wait to trip over there again. The thing is, they have a big party on the 4th of July, so there's a lot of people over there. And if you've done acid, you don't want to do it around a bunch of people that you don't know. You know, you don't want to be doing that kind of stuff. Acid puts you in this little pod. You know, you're in this little circle, and you really need to stay in that circle, but you gotta only let people you know into that circle. Most people aren't gonna understand this, but if you've done acid, a high dose, 1,000 UG or more, you would understand what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, it came around 6:30, right? I ate some food, was ready for my trip. So I walked out to the back. My friend Avery, right? That's his name, that's what we're gonna call him. Had a bunch of friends. You know, they look like they did drugs and smoked weed and stuff. So I offered him a couple tabs, right? I was gonna sell them to him, but they refused. I was okay. So I tried about 4 tabs, and that is usually how much I do. I figured it was gonna be just fine, but in reality, it wasn't. 4 tabs. Something I usually do on the weekend turned into a fucking nightmare. So I took those 4 tabs, right? If you don't mind, I'm just gonna have a drink right quick. But we went outside and played that game, you know, where you throw those hacky sack thingies. So, at the beginning of the trip was actually really good. It was really good. It was actually quite great. We walked down to this park area with Avery and his friend. Avery asked me a lot of questions too. We were talking about personal stuff. Talking about personal stuff when you're tripping on a lot of acid is very weird. It's hard to explain. But yeah, and then we went to the park. We went for a little walk around, and this is when I was peaking. And during the peak, my trip was actually fucking fantastic. It was incredible. I was listening to some Led Zeppelin and just having an all-around great time. But as it progressed, it got crazier and crazier. The thing is, I hadn't tripped in probably 12, 13 days since this. So, I didn't have much of a tolerance to LSD at this time. So, maybe a little bit, but not that much. So, made it to this park. We're going to call it, I'm not going to call it anything. I'm just going to call it a park. And there was a bench there. So, me and Avery's friends went and sat down. We talked a bunch. And I was tripping so fucking hard during this, I can't even explain it. I didn't know anybody besides Avery around me. I didn't know anybody. All his friends, they were unknown to me. I didn't know them, you know, and it was very difficult. It was very overwhelming, and it was incredibly scary. So then, when we were going to leave, I got up, stood up, and I couldn't walk. It was like, I was in a different dimension. I couldn't walk. I mean, my legs were like fucking wobble, like noodles, you know. I walk a couple steps forward, I collapse. Have a seizure. Now, I don't know what caused the seizure. I'm not saying that acid will always cause you a seizure. I'm saying that I bought some bad shit. This was my fault completely. I wasn't careful enough of who I bought it from. Now, acid will not always cause you a seizure if you do the right kind. If you get a test kit, you test it, and it's real, it is perfect. You won't fucking die. You won't. Nothing like that'll happen. I'm just saying, you gotta be careful of who you get acid from. Acid is not a joke. People think it's just some drug. It's not just some drug. It's a very complicated, insane substance. But as I was saying, I had my seizure. I wake up, and there's a bunch of paramedics around me. Now, at this point in my trip, I was ego deaf. Completely didn't know my name, didn't know where I lived, didn't know anything. Now, I don't remember much from this point, so I'm going to try to describe everything I remember. They asked me what day it was, who the president was, and I, quite frankly, had no fucking idea. I was gone at this point. I was completely in the trip. That completely ruined my perspective of LSD. Now, before this trip, I was having some of the best LSD trips of my life. I was having some life-changing shit, just incredible. I never want this to end kind of stuff. So I figured that I could just keep doing that, but that is not the case. If you're having good trips in a row, you need to make sure you're taking a break in between that. Because acid, it is not something you can do all the time. It is something you can do to help you. Now, I abused LSD. I will admit I abused it, and I regret abusing it. Because I have HPPD now, which is okay, but it kind of sucks at the same time. But as I was saying, I woke up from the seizure kind of thing. A bunch of paramedics around me. It was the most terrifying experience of my life. All the paramedics around me asking me questions, and my Aunt Sandy was there, and my Uncle Scott was there, and that's what we'll call him. I can't even put into words what it was like. It was like one of those moments that you feel like we're never gonna end. And I remember at one point I got up and tried to run away, but I fucking fell over. I tried to run away from the situation, which I kind of wish I did. Because of the hospital. Sorry. But they lifted me in the back of the ambulance, right? In this fucking chair. I was strapped down. I could not move. You don't understand what this was like. When you're on acid, you want to be in a comfortable environment, somewhere where you can move around and do what you want to fucking do. The doctors don't know shit about LSD, obviously. They don't know fucking shit. And they strapped me down to this fucking, whatever the fuck it's called, and they put me in the back of the ambulance. And you know what they fucking do? They fucking stick a needle in my arm. And they say, pump him full of Ativan or something like that. But it was Ativan. I know that for a fact. And it calmed me right down, but it was terrible. The fact that they strapped me down like that when I'm on acid, 1,000 UG plus. I was on 4 tabs, like I said. They were really, really strong tabs. I'd say 350 UG each. I don't know why I had the seizure. I've done acid about 3 or 4 times since that event, and I haven't had a seizure. I don't know how that happened. I really wish I understood how. But I don't know. I really don't know. But I was passed out for a couple hours, woke up in the hospital, and that was it. The lucky thing is that I did not wake up with a fucking tube in my dick. A tube, a catheter, you know, those fucking things. They had put one in me, but they took it out. I was so lucky. I was so grateful that I woke up without one of those in me. But I woke up tripping balls, still have a fucking IV in me, and all these stickers on my chest. It was the most horrific trip I've ever had, and I just make this for safety, guys. You need to be careful who you buy acid from, where you get it. Make sure you test it. I cannot stress that enough. And please make sure you're in the right environment for doing this. You have to make sure you're in the right area, you're in the right mindset. All that matters, because acid is not a fucking joke. Thank you for watching. Maybe eventually I'll have another trip report. Maybe.